Don't expect this to be a short video, y'all. Not at all. You see what I got on the table. We got a lot to talk about. First of all, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. What day is it? It is Wednesday, the 24th of April, 2024. 2024. And the year keeps marching on. Gonna be another hot day in my locale. We're gonna be pumping the AC and we're gonna be keeping cool with iced tea. So, I've had to spend all weekend. I spent a long 3 day weekend playing Star Wars. What's it called? Rebellion. Jeez, I can't even remember. I guess it's Rebellion, right? The Fantasy Flight game from. Anyhow, man, I hadn't played it before, not because I didn't want to, but just because I just hadn't. And yeah, if you're wondering if it's a war game or not, it certainly is. It's I think it lists as thematic, but it's a war game in every way I would measure it. So it's a good game. So I look forward to playing it some more. Although I think that um, when the Empire, playing the Empire, it's a little straightforward, right? You're just looking for the rebel base. You can't get mixed up on into the weeds and doing other things. But that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about that some other time, maybe. What we're looking at right here is Strategy and Tactics, number 21, 1970. With the game, it's got a couple games in it. We're talking about that too, with Chicago, or Mrs. O'Leary's Cow. Where were you when we really needed you? Of course, the idea of Mrs. O'Leary's Cow kicking over the land and starting a great fire in Chicago, which we've talked in depth about the Great Fire of Chicago and Mrs. O'Leary's Cow and debunking that whole thing. Not here, but in school at times when I was there, and in some of the classes I would teach. But that's neither here nor there. Wow, what a thing! This comes with both the games. We are looking at the game Chicago, which is the idea of it is one of my favorite ideas for a game ever, and we'll talk about that too. But I do want to go into strategy and tactics a little bit of history of the magazine. The magazine's still pumping out strong, and not unsurprisingly, it was started by Chris Wagner while he was in the Air Force. Chair Force, of course. I think he was a staff sergeant. Of course, the staff sergeant has time to start a magazine in the chair force. I was joking, y'all, joking. Love my Air Force people. I'm just, you get a little jealous of the Air Force because they have such good amenities, if you will, right? Or that's the way we see it. Anyway, so while he was in Japan, he started it in Tokyo, I guess he was stationed. And he started it, and when he moved back stateside, he kept it going. And really what he wanted was a magazine to compete with Avalon Hill's The General. The General was and is an important magazine. Not that it's still going, but it was a very important magazine in wargaming, period. It just was. Started from the wargaming company, the wargaming manufacturer, and it was really the house organ. And I think at times it might have talked about other games, but it pretty much stuck strictly to Avalon Hill games after a certain point. That's what they were doing. They were selling Avalon Hill games. They was wanting you to play Avalon Hill games. Smart business practice. And so Chris Wagner wanted something to compete with it. And there was all kinds of zines, man. People would make zines everywhere. They all had them, even metagaming. Didn't the Space Gamer? Oh, gosh, wasn't that from metagaming at one point? Before Steve Jackson Games split off from metagaming. But every place there, people had zines. The last good zine I remember was Richard Berg's zine, the Brog, the Berg Review of Games. That's where he gave honest reviews, sometimes too honest, but man, that's the last good zine I remember being circulated. Excuse me today. But High pollen count. High pollen count. Um, but Strategy and Tactics ran as something different, as a magazine to compete with the General, because you'd have, other games that weren't made by Avalon Hill that people wanted to know coverage of, and so on and so forth. So Strategy and Tactics picked that up, and it was acquired by Jim Dunnigan and SPI in 1969. I guess this was the SPI's organ to pump out games. In the early ones, it started with, I think, issue 18. From issue 18, and this is issue 21, this would be the fourth issue SPI and Dunnigan did. But from 1 to 18, there's no game in there. It was just a magazine. And from 18 to, I want to say 90, 91 maybe, that's when SPI had it. And that's when they put games in it. And not only that, but the early ones, I think the first 4 or 5 or 4 out of 5 had 2 games in them. This one included. There's 2 games to it, which is a very cool idea and very neat done. So, it's been around since 1969, and it has done really good things. It's still around. It's still one of the best. Again, when I say it's one of the best wargaming magazines, it's one of the best wargaming magazines in history. I love it now. It's been with Decision Games longer than anybody else. It's been in a lot of hands. It was in Chris Wagner original hands and SPI. Then TSR for about 20 issues, I guess. Maybe 30. I think about 20 issues. Then to Worldwide War Games, 3W for, I don't know, 15 issues maybe. When Dunnigan got it back, we might go over some of those. Dunnigan was once again editing it at that point, and then ultimately Decision Games, which where Joe Miranda publishes a lot of his games in that. And magazine games are special to me because they did a lot of things in magazine games that they wouldn't have done in a box game. Some of the games would become box games later, but they took, just like the mini games that people did that with, they took risks and chances and tried new things. And they're going to look at some new things in this one with Chicago. Man, let's look at this. The magazine's in real good shape. There's the S&T supplement. This is the feedback. That's one of the best things they did was the feedback system that they had. Like Dunnigan said, they gave people what they wanted, and every once in a while they gave them something they didn't know they wanted. So that was Chicago. It was an editor's choice game for the year. And it's, Convention 70. Wow. Talking about some cool stuff going on. And let's open it up and let's look at, campaign analysis for North Africa, 1940 to 42. Very cool. SPI wasn't just selling games. They were selling history pretty much from the beginning. So when you see all of these, all the hardware and the specs and all that, even rifle specs there, that's cool. It's cool to look at. Let's take this out for now. And that's all cool to look at. So we'll get to the featured game, which is Chicago. Wow. What can I say about the game? The game, 1970s, 2 years away from the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, the 68 Democratic National Convention in Chicago. It was Mayor Richard J. Daley, the elder, his folly, one of the follies he made. But it was what it was. The high protests, as there obviously would be in the time, LBJ certainly wasn't going to seek re-election because of his getting involvement in Vietnam and a large peace protesters within and without his party, not just within and without. And so they were up there protesting what they would have protested, right? The war, trying to make sure to get a peace candidate in there, which ultimately pretty much did. Who was it? Was it Humphrey? So, but in their protesting, the police got far more aggressive with them than they should have had. So what was done. And it even Dunnigan postulates in here that it even gave Nixon the election. Now, whether that particular event gave Nixon the election is debatable. It's certainly, you can make a case for it, though. And, but, and it is what it is. And I want to say another thing about Nixon here. Nixon and the Watergate thing that happens later, and how egregious some people still think it was. And it was. Make no mistake, breaking into your opponent's headquarters to see their plan when they had no chance of beating you. I mean, it was just terrible. Set up a robbery. But our politics are even worse today. I mean, gosh. Now we don't even need to break in, right? We can just wiretap our opponents or try to break into their emails or one of a million things with the, what do you want to call it? The Patriot Act. We can pretty much spy on who we want to with that. So, really and truly, our politicians, and regardless of party, down with the duopoly as far as I'm concerned. We need more parties. The two-party system has done a lot of bad things for us. But yeah, regardless of party, they're just, all of them are just about as slimy as Nixon. And that's saying something, right? Even like Bernie Sanders, who claims to be an outsider, and then he, shuts up and rolls over for, whatever reason, whatever they got on him or whatever. Okay, I'm sorry. No conspiracy stuff. And it's not conspiratorial. It's just my problem with American politics, and you don't have to have the same opinion as me. You might love your party and think it's fine, but I just don't. And I worry about the state of American politics. And Chicago, Jim Dunnigan did too in this time. I digress, but we're going to talk about Chicago. Chicago is very similar to the more familiar war game in that it involves conflict. It is unlike a war game in that it does not simulate death. This is true. There are other war games that don't simulate death too. But then there are the what if situations. If nothing else, it might broaden your understanding of what went on at the Democratic Convention in 1968. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. What side you're going to take and what you're going to do. And this is just designer notes. The designer notes are really good. Really good. And it's talking about, and Dunnigan, who designed the game, he talks about in the designer notes, it took a long time for him to design it because the 8 months, because he's designing a whole new system. And as we can see, Dunnigan relied a lot on already current systems he had. He had to regenerate other games, to make other games. As Decision Games does today, Joe Miranda, a lot of those games rely on similar systems, and you can understand that when you're pumping out a game, however many games, how many magazines you got, every month or every other month or whatever, you can understand it. So that's why a lot of those decision games today in the same groupings can seem a little bit samey because they kind of are, but that's just neither here nor there. Now, these are all designer notes. You're going to have no, man, I don't want to, you're going to have no, look at that, postal diplomacy, planned diplomacy by post, by the mail. Man, good times back in the day. That was the early a vassal, if you will. These are all designer notes, and down here, this is just inflammatory rhetoric to get you in the mood, as it's going to have a quote from the Declaration of Independence. We're going to have one. God forbid we should be 20 years without a rebellion. Thomas Jefferson, so there are some inflammatory remarks, which I myself am no stranger to make, because not because I hate my country, because I love my country. I love my country. I just wish politicians of all stripes would be better. But it is what it is. That being said, where are the rules? The rules you won't find in here. And there's a reason for that. There's rules for the other game. The rules you won't find in here. And there's a reason for that. We're going to go through it and look. Those are printings of some copies of some counters. And here are the real counter sheets. Okay. And so, oh wow, we'll look at some of this too before we go. Like I said, I'm gonna take my time, y'all. Love this stuff. Love this crap, man. We should have did a video on this earlier. I just didn't really want to. A lot of these old games I kind of get scared to take out, and then this one here, I got full counters and stuff, and every time I look at a game, I just want to punch those counters, and I just want to do. But that's the map. There's your map. Redmond Simonson did the layout, of course, so that's why it looks so neat. This is your net map. This is your, and here are your rules. Your rules right there down on the map. I love that. And people may think that I'm crazy because I say sometimes when rules are folded up, I hate. But I love if you could do that and leave them all the rules right here on the map. You just look down there. That is beautiful. That is beautiful to do. I love that. Man. Rules of play, the objectives. The objectives are kind of odd because, you don't want to be. Have you ever played? I like street fighting. I like the idea of street fighting as a war game. And I like it to play. This isn't the first game that simulates a street battle. The first one was up against the wall, motherfucker, with the problems at Columbia University, which happened when Dunnigan was going there after he was out of the. He was in the Army, right? After he was out of the Army and going to Columbia, and so the happenings went on there, and he did the game. And which this game bears some similarities to it, but also differences to it, right? How to play. The game is played in turns, like 25A, 25B, and 25C, equaling 1 day. The routine for each turn follows the following sequence. Step 1, green player moves all his units he wishes to move. All right. Step 2, green player resolves on all conflict he wishes to initiate this turn. Step 3, same as step 1, except blue moves. Step 4, same as step 2, except blue moves. Step 5, if this is an A or B turn, green must now take out of the game 1/3 of his groups. If a C turn, all groups not in parks are taken out of the game. Step 6, move the time record marker to reflect the passing of one turn. Game ends on 29C, right? Okay, it's how to win. We're going to talk about that too. How to resolve conflict, which is kind of cool. But how to win. The player that has the most points on the exposure index by 28C turn wins unless the police shoot someone first. So, kind of cool, man. The game is kind of cool, and I'll just always love these conflict resolution at your CRT. I will always love these games that, you know, street battles for lack of better terms. Um, a friend of mine, a friend of mine lives up like Michigan or something, so you have to excuse him. He challenged the veracity of my statement, saying that I like to play games about conflict in the street. And I said that on that stupid Snowflake Rebellion game. He thinks I'm just, don't. And so that's really another reason why I've got this out. I do like them. I have most of them. Joe Miranda, speaking of Joe Miranda, he made a good street battle, L.A. Lawless, which was made after the Rodney King riots. Another one was L.A. Street Gang. Is that what it's called? It's an interesting little game. But I've always liked that. And this is really the granddaddy of them all, unless you want to include Up Against the Wall, motherfucker. But that's it, man. Let's look at the counters. Let's check the counters out. Counters kind of awesome. Chicago counters. Every time I get this out and I look at it, I want to punch these counters and play. And people are like, no, don't do it. You can find this game on BGG. You can find a print and play. You can find the counters. You can find the map. You can print and play it pretty easy. So it's not unplayable. You can find it and play it for free pretty much. But every time I look at this, I want to punch these and I want to do what they're supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? And that's just me. That's just my insanity. But man, what a cool game. Y'all ever play it? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you liked it. Doesn't get a lot of shine on BGG. It's around a 5 or so. It's which you can expect a game like this could be. But, yeah. The other game within this S&T 21 is I believe it's a World War I game, which I haven't played and I should play. The Flight of the Goldman. Yeah, it's a World War I game, so I should play that. It's another game. That one gets a good ratings. Man, I get a lot of Tactics 2. The new game of invasion. Man, how cool. How cool. Let's look at the Flight of the Goldman here. What's that look like? And it is. Nice looking map. It's only black and white. Nice looking map though. Okay. The counters for it is Flight of the Goldman. Here we go. So the counters look like. Wow, very cool. Germans and the British. Very cool. Man, counters for both games. Very, very plain though, right? They work. And they're half-inch counters, and they're pretty thick. They're actually good counters. They're not just going to fall out. So, well done. Man, 2 games and one thing, one issue back in the day. How would I have loved that? Well, I wonder why. I don't know. Maybe I did know why. But I don't know why that they stopped that, other than they're just the production, or they're giving games away when they don't need to be, or were they just doing it for a time for promotional use? I don't know, man. Never got a chance to ask Dunnigan that. If I ever get a chance to ask him any more questions, that will be a question I will ask. Yeah, and Jim Dunnigan, you see he's kind of still got a lot of. Later in life, he became more of a normal kind of. I love him as a game designer. The arrogance of him and so on. He knows he's right about everything, even if he's not. I love him that as a game designer. But you can see how he's really on the side of the protesters here. and in the other, up against the wall motherfucker, on the side of the protesters, and his writing of it and talking about it. And kind of down with the man attitude, to be honest with you. And, now if you listen to Strategy Page, which I do, he's became more of a straightforward neocon, right? But not that makes you evil or anything necessarily. You can have different opinions than me, and just saying that you can see when a younger man and an older man, kind of the way they think, and Jim Dunnigan too. Let's look at a few of these other things in here. There's an advertisement from The Complete Strategist, which last time I was in New York, it's been a while since I've been in New York, y'all. It was still up there, The Complete Strategist. There used to be two of them, one up in New York and one in headquarters for war gamers. There's still war games there. There's a lot of other stuff too. Complete Strategist form. That's cool. Counters, please, counters right here. Strategy and Tactics special subscriptions. Do they have new subscriber? When did they start offering the lifetime subscriptions? This is before that, maybe. It's in the 70s. This is just your fourth magazine. Yeah, you're going up to 3 years here. Very cool, though. Very cool. These are just envelopes. Maybe some counters in here. There are. Oh, yeah, there's some counters from. All right. Cool. Well done. And these envelopes, which I love these. SPI envelopes. It's how you order games a lot of times, right? Counters in here, too. I don't know what they are. But I remember those blue envelopes that, like I said, there was certain kinds of nerds, right? The nerds that were regular and played the Avalon Hill games. And there's a nerd that walked around with the envelope with like a little pamphlet in it. A blue envelope with a pamphlet that had these weird SPI games, right? Man, I love the games. But I'm not I do love SPI. I love a lot of the games. But that's why I did the series on SPI games I do not like. People think I'm a homer for SPI, and I guess maybe I am. And it's hard for me not to be. Hard for me not to be, and hard for me not to love these old games. There it is. Chicago. And, wow. Think I'm going to make a print and play edition and play it in July at a con I will be at, which I might talk about the closer we get to it. Yeah. What a cool idea for a game, right? So, all right. I've rambled enough. I've talked enough. There it is. Like it, hate it, what? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. But, gosh, this stuff excites me. This old stuff excites me. And like I said, issue 21. If anybody would like to see some more issues of not SPI, Strategy and Tactics, some of the other issues, let me know. Maybe we can round up an issue that's before SPI. Look at some of those. Some of those are cool. I have a lot of those, collected a lot of those over the years. So, all right, folks. Have a great day. Stay safe out there. And I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.